Hi, this is Mike Jensen, and I want to show you how easy it is to create HDR images in 3 different types of software. We're going to go through Lightroom, Photoshop, and One1 software and show you how to create an HDR image. And to do this, I'm going to use the same 3 images, and I've chosen these 3 bracketed images of sunflowers that I photographed at a sunflower farm in Kansas. So all you have to do, and this is in Lightroom, and all you have to do is go in and select the 3 images. You can probably notice over on the left hand side that I've created a collection. It's called Sunflower HDR, so it's real easy for me just to get in there, get to those, and do this. I'm assuming that I've already made all the adjustments I need to for white balance and things like that, and I've got other videos on that you can look at and see how to do that. So really, I just make a selection. I've got a 3 different bracketed images, 2 stops apart. I right click, I go to Photo Merge, and I click on HDR, and you'll see how easy this is. We're going to get a preview window first. This only takes a minute or 2. Okay, so I've got the preview of all my 3 images put together. They look good. And all I have to do is click on Merge. And this will, again, just take a couple of moments to merge together. You'll see a progress arrow or a progress bar in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. And then it will tell you when it's done. Okay, so we're done. And total elapsed time on that was probably about maybe 20 seconds. And I'm doing this on a Mac Pro with 64 gigs of RAM. So it's a pretty powerful machine. The end result is what's called a DNG file, and that's what Adobe looks for. It's called a digital negative. And if we take it into the develop module and take a look at this thing, it's already got a lot of really nice rich colors. The big thing I'm looking for here is clarity, and I want to make sure that the images were stacked together and merged accurately so that I don't have any edges that are off. I haven't shot this in a field where there are any where there was any wind. Once again, if you're shooting images for HDR where there's wind, you're going to have problems. So this actually looks pretty good, and the focus point for this F22 image was right up here in the front area. So this should be nicely in focus, and then you'll start to see things trail off a little bit as we get out further towards the back part of the field. We have a nice starburst here that's created by doing things at F22, and so that's the result. When I'm finished with all 3, I'll do a side-by-side comparison and let you make your judgments from there. Okay, so if you work from Lightroom, you can actually select these 3 raw images and just right-click again and click Merge to HDR Pro in Photoshop, and it'll take it right into Photoshop. Also, I want to show you that you can create this HDR file from Adobe Bridge as well. If you don't work in Lightroom and you just work in Photoshop, you can take it in from Adobe Bridge. Just click on Tools, Photoshop, and then Merge to HDR Pro, and it will do the same exact thing that it did from Lightroom. Okay, you can see it's kind of going through its processing, and it should come up and give me a prompt here in just a moment. So here we are in the Photoshop Merge to HDR window, and there's really not much to it. You can just see your three images on the bottom right. You have a histogram over on the right hand area. My mode is 32-bit because I've found that that really gives me the best processing. And down on the right hand side you'll see Tone in ACR button, and I'm going to click on that, and it's going to come up in ACR, Adobe Camera Raw, and then we can do any editing from there. If we click out of that, you'll see that we end up getting a layer in Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Adobe Camera Raw, and I'm not going to do any more editing right now in Adobe Camera Raw because I want you to be able to see all three images the way they were finished from a raw perspective, and then we can go in and fine-tune the final product. Okay, and now we are in One1 software, and the top three images are our raw images. So all I have to do is select them and right click again. They make it really easy. Go down to Create HDR and you'll watch it process. All right, here we go. So right here is the main file that is created. On1 has their own file naming conventions, and it'll create, I think, probably what's called an On1 file. Okay, so now we are in the On1 develop module, which will allow us to make any changes we want to. I click Save, brought us into the On1 develop module, and I can make any editing changes that I want to. And again, you'll notice if I zoom in here, On1 did a nice job of blending it, as did Lightroom and as did Photoshop. So we're pretty happy with those. And now I'm going to do like a side-by-side for you and just show you how all three of them look, and then we'll do a final editing of the image. Okay, so here we are with all three of our rendered images, and this one on the right-hand side is the Lightroom image. The one next to it, below it, is the HDR image from Photoshop, and then here is the image from On1 software. So let's click all three of them and take a look at them. If you are asking me, as I'm looking at the screen right now, I think the best rendered image is probably the one from Lightroom, and that's just quick and dirty right now. It has a very crisp colors, very clean, crisp image, sunflowers. The image from Photoshop looks a little darker, a little bit more dull, and the one from On1 looks a bit more washed out, kind of a little bit hazy. So if you ask me, I'm going to start doing my final edits with the image from Lightroom. And I'll be honest with you, that's how I do almost all of my HDR images. I do them in Lightroom first, and then I take them into either the develop module in Lightroom or into Photoshop, sometimes On1, to finish them off. So there's your demo on how to create and edit HDR images in Lightroom, Photoshop, and On1. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Okay, so here is the final edit of this image. You can see in Lightroom, over in the right-hand area of the develop module, this is all the same sliders as is in the Adobe Camera Raw filter in Photoshop and in Adobe Camera Raw when you open a RAW file by using Photoshop or by using Adobe Bridge. So let's just get working on it. I'm going to click Edit, Open in Photoshop. Now, one thing I want to point out is notice the sliders here. When the HDR processing software in Lightroom blended all these three files together, it adjusted it in the develop module. So when I open it up into Photoshop, it actually wipes the slate clean, and I can use this same module in Photoshop. It wipes the slate clean, and I can use this same module in Photoshop, and it makes it really easy to make a few more extra adjustments. So the first thing I'm going to do is just right click on the layer and click on Convert to Smart Object. What that does is it just makes this layer have the ability to do multiple different edits on that, and I'll be able to go back and make adjustments any way I want to. Okay, so that is done, and the first thing I want to do is then go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter. You'll notice over on the right hand side, these are the same sliders that are in Lightroom. And so what I'm going to do first is I want to see what happens to this sky if I just bring down the highlights. And you can see that's pretty cool. So I know that I can use something to bring down the highlights here, and it might actually be like a graduated neutral density filter or something like that. But I know I want to do a couple of things. I want to tighten up the contrast a little bit, so I'm going to slide this to the right just a little bit. You can see the changes it makes. It really makes the yellows pop out a little bit more. And then the shadows, I'm going to drop down just a little bit. I'm going to add some texture to the entire image. Texture is kind of like a sharpening agent. And I'm going to click dehaze and just slide that to the right just a little bit. So you can see the difference when it pops. All right, so now it's got a little bit more pop. There's more contrast. There's more brights in the yellows, things like that. Now, if I wanted to go back in here, I just double click on Camera Raw Filter, because I do actually want to add a little bit more yellow into the yellows, and I'm just going to bump up the saturation. I don't do it a lot in saturation, but in this case I'm going to just bump it up a little bit. All right, so that's cool there. And the next thing I want to do is make a selection of these flowers, and all I do is go into Select Color Range, and I click on the flowers. And you'll notice that all these marching ants come up around the flowers. And then the only other thing I want to do here is click Filter, Sharpen, and Smart Sharpen is usually one of the ones I use the most. And I've already got this preset. I'll do another video on sharpening, so I'm just going to click that. I want you to see the difference it makes. Sharpened versus not sharpened. Okay, Command D or Control D on your PC will go in here, and that's a pretty nice sharp image, isn't it? Let's click on the eyeball here, and we'll take off the sharpening. And even though I had it perfectly in focus when I took the image, you can see what a difference this sharpening makes, and it just really helps make the image pop a lot more. Okay, so now I've made a couple of really minor adjustments in here, and it's looking pretty good. There is an adjustment I can make in Lightroom called the graduated neutral density filter, and I can just drag that down over the top and make that darker, but I think what I want to do, and I'll show you when we get back into Lightroom, I want to just make a selection of this sky area. I'm going to click the Select and Mask tool, and the red areas are always the areas that are not selected. So I'm just going to go in here and kind of clean up the trees a little bit. Make sure that everything is selected okay. Okay, I've got that selected, and then the next thing I'm going to do is open up a levels adjustment. Levels is like your histogram. You're just going to make these adjustments using these sliders. And look at this. Now that's like way too far. That's like a nuclear bomb went off. But right about here is not bad. And you can see I'm just bypassing the clipping line a little bit. And maybe if I back that off here, that's probably not too bad. So there you have it. That's the whole adjustment process. It took all of 1, 2, 3 adjustments in Photoshop to make this image print ready. And I've got a print on my wall. I sold a bunch of them when I was in a gallery in Kansas City. And there you go. Okay, I did want to show you this neutral density filter here in the develop module of Lightroom. Here it is over here on the right hand side. It says graduated filter, and if I just drag it down kind of like this, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to make any adjustments I might want to make. I might want to drop the exposure, I might want to drop the highlights, and again I'm going to pull it down and watch this. Look at that. It kind of makes the same adjustment I made in Photoshop. And so there's another way of doing it. Hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.